When a billionaire hides in his own garage at 3 a.m. and a woman with nothing left to lose crashes into his world with a dying van and a secret that could destroy them both, you're about to witness a collision that rewrites everything. This isn't about money. It's about survival, trust, and the moment two people choose to fight back against a system designed to crush them. Stay until the end, like this video, and comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. Because what starts with broken brakes ends with broken rules. The rain hit Seattle like it had a grudge. Not the soft, romantic drizzle people wrote songs about. This was the kind of rain that hammered metal, flooded gutters, and made you question every choice that led you outside. It was 3:17 a.m., and Ethan Vale stood in the middle of his repair shop with grease up to his elbows and absolutely no intention of going home. Home was a penthouse he barely recognized. Marble floors his 5-year-old daughter Sophie refused to walk on because they were too slippery and sad. A kitchen stocked by someone else. Furniture chosen by an interior designer who'd never met him. It was a cage wrapped in luxury, and Ethan had learned to avoid it. The shop, though, this place made sense. 4,200 square feet of concrete, oil stains, and tools that did exactly what you asked them to do. No board meetings. No investors pretending concern while calculating profit margins. Just steel, bolts, and problems he could actually fix. Ethan wiped his hands on a rag that had given up being cleaned 6 months ago and stepped back from the Chevy on the lift. A 2008 Silverado with a transmission that had died spectacularly on I-5. The owner was a contractor, third-generation, family business, the kind of guy who still shook hands and meant it. He'd nearly cried dropping it off. "I can't afford a new truck," he'd said, voice cracking. This was my dad's. Ethan had quoted him parts and labor. Half what any other shop would charge. The guy had still looked sick. "I'll figure out a payment plan," Ethan had told him. "Just come pick it up Friday." Now, alone under fluorescent lights that buzzed like dying insects, Ethan torqued down the last bolt on the rebuilt transmission. His back ached. His knuckles were split in 3 places. He was worth somewhere north of $4 billion, and he was bleeding into a transmission pan at 3 in the morning. His phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again. He pulled it out with 2 fingers, trying not to smear grease across the screen. A text from Diane, his executive assistant, and the only person who had permission to contact him after midnight. "Sophie asked for you at bedtime. Again." Ethan's chest tightened. He typed back with 1 thumb. "I'll make breakfast. Promise." 3 dots appeared, then vanished. No response. Diane had a gift for silence that communicated more than words. He shoved the phone back in his pocket and returned to the Silverado, but the focus was gone. Sophie's face flickered through his mind. Her wide brown eyes, same shade as her mother's, tracking him every time he walked out the door. She never asked him to stay anymore, just watched him leave. That was worse. Ethan had become a billionaire by accident, which sounded like the kind of thing people said in TED Talks to seem humble, but in his case, it was true. He developed a proprietary hydraulic system for industrial machinery at 26, something to do with pressure regulation and fluid dynamics that bored most people to tears. But it made factories 40% more efficient, and efficiency translated to billions. He'd sold the patent, kept the royalties, and watched his bank account become an abstract concept. Money solved problems. It also created them. After Sophie's mother left, walked out when their daughter was 2, couldn't handle the pressure, the schedules, the life that came with his name, Ethan had thrown himself into Vale Industries, built it into an empire, hired the best nannies, the best tutors, bought the best everything, and somehow still managed to fail the only person who mattered. So a year ago, he'd stepped back, installed a CEO he trusted, kept his board seat, and opened this shop under a name nobody connected to him, Sterling Automotive. No press releases, no grand opening, just a quiet space in Georgetown where he could work with his hands and pretend he was someone else. The funny thing was, he was better at this than running a company. He just locked the Silverado's hood when headlights cut through the rain, bright and desperate. A vehicle lurched into the parking lot, not drove, lurched like it was fighting to stay conscious. Ethan moved to the window. A delivery van. White, or it had been once. Now it was primer gray, rust-pocked, with a logo on the side so faded he couldn't read it. The The thing was shuddering, engine screaming in a pitch that made his teeth ache. Brake lights flared. The van stopped 6 inches from his garage door. Smoke poured from under the hood. The driver's door opened. A woman dropped out into the rain like she'd been shoved. She hit the pavement hard, caught herself on the door, and stood up slowly. Ethan could see her through the downpour, lean build, hair plastered to her skull, wearing a jacket 2 sizes too big and jeans with holes that weren't fashion statements. She looked at the van, then at the shop, then back at the van. And Ethan saw it in her posture, the set of her shoulders. This wasn't surprise. This was inevitability, like she'd been waiting for this specific disaster and now it had finally arrived. She walked toward the door. Ethan met her there, pulling it open before she could knock. Rain blew in sideways, soaking the floor. Up close, she was maybe 30, with sharp features and eyes that didn't ask for anything, just assessed. "You open?" she said. Her voice was hoarse, like she'd been shouting, or crying, or both. "No," Ethan said. "Your lights are on. I'm working on something." "So am I." She nodded toward the van. "That." Ethan glanced past her. Smoke was still rising, thinner now, but steady. "You drove it here like that?" "Didn't have a choice. You could have called a tow." "With what money?" It wasn't defensive, just factual. Ethan recognized the tone, someone who'd done the math, knew the answer, and had stopped being embarrassed about it. "What happened?" he asked. "I don't know. It just started dying." She wiped rain off her face with the back of her hand. "I need it fixed tonight. Tonight's not possible." "Then I'm screwed." She said it the way someone announces the weather. Ethan studied her, looking for the hustle, the angle, the desperation that would tip into manipulation. He'd seen it 1,000 times. People found out who he was, what he was worth, and suddenly every problem needed his checkbook. But she wasn't looking at him like a solution. She was looking at him like an obstacle. "What's your name?" he asked. "Mara Quinn." "Mara, I can look at it in the morning, maybe get you an answer by... I have a delivery in 4 hours." She checked her watch, a cheap digital thing with a cracked face. 3 hours and 40 minutes. Perishable goods. If I don't make it, I lose the contract. If I lose the contract, I lose the business. "What business?" "Mine. You run a logistics company?" "I run 3 vans and a prayer." She smiled, but it was bitter. "Well, 2 vans now, I guess." Ethan looked past her again. The van had stopped smoking, which somehow made it look worse, like it had given up entirely. "Where's your delivery?" "Tacoma." "That's 40 miles. I know where it is." "In that van? You wouldn't make it to the freeway." "Then I'll push it to the freeway." She wasn't joking. Ethan felt something shift in his chest. Recognition, maybe, or respect. He'd built a fortune on solving impossible problems, but he'd never had to push a van through the rain to do it. "Let me look at it," he said. Mara blinked. "Now? You said you needed it tonight." "I don't have money to pay you." "Didn't ask if you did." She stared at him like he'd spoken another language. "Why would you help me?" Good question. Ethan didn't have a good answer. Or maybe he had too many. Because Sophie was asleep in a house that didn't feel like home. Because his hands needed something real to fix. Because this woman had walked into a stranger's shop at 3 a.m. with nothing but a broken van and hadn't asked for pity once. "Because it's raining," he said finally. Mara studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay." The van was worse than he'd thought. Ethan popped the hood and swore under his breath. Oil everywhere, coolant mixed in, which meant the head gasket was blown or cracked, belts frayed to the point of snapping. And the smell, burnt rubber, overheated metal, something almost sweet that meant transmission fluid had joined the party. "How long since this had maintenance?" he asked. Mara stood beside him, arms crossed against the cold. 3 weeks. Full service." "Where?" "Shop in Renton, Davidson's." Ethan knew the name. Mid-sized operation, 3 bays, decent reputation. "They do this?" Supposedly, he pulled the dipstick. Oil was black as ink, gritty. He wiped it clean, checked again. Same result. When was the last time you actually saw them change the oil? Mara's jaw tightened. I didn't watch. I trusted them. How much did they charge? $280. For what? Oil change, filter, fluid check, belt inspection. She rattled it off like a memorized list. Same as always. Ethan crouched down, shining his phone's flashlight underneath. The oil filter was old. He could see the rust on the threads. The belts were the wrong size, cheaper versions that wouldn't last half as long. And there, on the inside of the engine block, someone had spray painted a mark. Fresh paint. They marked this, he said. What? Your engine. They marked it. He stood up, pointing. See that? It's a reference point. Means they opened it up, looked around, closed it, and left it. Why would they do that? To bill you for work they didn't do. Mara went very still. You're saying they scammed me. I'm saying they charged you for a service and didn't provide it. That's fraud. No. Her voice was tight. No, that's not possible. I've been using them for 2 years. Rick, the owner, he's always been straight with me. Maybe he was, or maybe he saw an opportunity. What opportunity? I'm broke. I can barely pay them as it is. Exactly. Ethan wiped his hands on his rag. You're on contract, right? They're your exclusive maintenance provider? Yeah, part of the agreement when I bought the vans. I have to use them for all repairs or I void the warranty. Who set up that contract? Rick did. He sold me the vans, said it was standard. Ethan felt anger rising, not at her, at the system. It's not standard. It's a trap. They lock you in, do substandard work, charge premium prices, and when your vans break down, you're stuck coming back to them. Mara's face had gone pale. So what you're saying is, they've been sabotaging me. Not sabotaging, neglecting, which is worse because it's legal. Technically, he closed the hood carefully, like it might shatter. This van didn't break down because you drove it hard. It broke down because they didn't maintain it. But I paid them. Doesn't matter. You signed the contract. They fulfilled the letter of it, showed up, opened the hood, wrote an invoice. What they actually did is almost impossible to prove. Almost, Ethan met her eyes. I could prove it, if you want me to. How? Full tear down, document everything. Photograph the parts, cross-reference with your invoices, build a case that shows a pattern of negligence and fraud. And then what? Then you take it to the state licensing board, file a complaint, maybe get your money back, maybe get them shut down. Mara laughed, short, sharp, humorless. And in the meantime, my van stays broken, I lose my contracts, and my business dies. Probably. So I'm screwed either way. Yeah. She turned away, staring out at the rain. Her shoulders were shaking, not from cold, Ethan realized, from rage, the kind that came from working yourself to the bone and still losing. I built this from nothing, she said quietly. 3 years ago, I had a car and a dream, saved every dollar, bought the first van used, ran deliveries 16 hours a day, built up enough clients to get a loan for the second van, then the third. I don't have employees, I don't have investors. It's just me, killing myself to make this work. I know, Ethan said. You don't. She looked back at him. You have no idea what it's like to be one breakdown away from homeless, to smile at clients while your bank account's in the negatives, to trust someone because you don't have a choice, and then find out they've been bleeding you dry the whole time. She was right. He didn't know. Not anymore. But he remembered. Before the patent sale, before Vail Industries, he'd been a kid in a garage not much different from this one, fixing neighbors' cars for $20, eating ramen, dodging his landlord. He'd clawed his way up, built something, escaped, and then he'd built walls so high he forgot what the ground looked like. You're right, Ethan said. I don't know what you're going through, but I know engines, and I know predators. And what they did to you, it's not just illegal, it's wrong. Wrong doesn't pay my bills. No, but this might. He pulled out his phone, opened the calculator. If I strip this van down tonight, document everything, and we file a formal complaint with evidence, there's a chance, small but real, that Davidson's gets investigated. If they do, and if we're lucky, the state could force them to refund your maintenance costs. That's what, $6,000 over 2 years? $6,800. That buys you time, breathing room, enough to rebuild. Mara's expression didn't change. And what do you get out of this? Nothing. Bullshit. Everyone wants something. Not from you. Then why help me? Ethan hesitated because the truth was complicated, because he was tired of fundraisers and galas where people thanked him for money he didn't miss, because his daughter looked at him like a stranger, because this woman had walked into his shop with nothing and still refused to beg. Because I can, he said finally. It was the most honest answer he had. Mara searched his face looking for the lie. He let her. Stood there under fluorescent lights with grease on his hands and exhaustion in his bones, and let her decide if he was worth trusting. Finally, she nodded. Okay. Okay? Do it. Document everything. If we're going down, we're taking them with us. Ethan felt something click into place, a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in months. Then let's get started. What? They worked through the night. Ethan rolled the van into the shop, positioned it on the main lift, and started the teardown. Mara stood beside him, watching, asking questions. She didn't know engines, but she was smart, caught on quick, remembered everything. This is the oil pan, Ethan said, pointing. See the sludge? That's what happens when oil doesn't get changed. It breaks down, turns to gunk, and clogs everything. How long would it take to get this bad? 6 months, maybe more. They changed it 3 weeks ago. They told you they did. Mara pulled out her phone, scrolling through old invoices. Here, March 14th, oil change, synthetic blend, $45 for the oil, $30 for labor. Ethan checked the filter again. The date stamped on it was from 18 months ago. He took a picture, then held it next to her phone screen. That's not new, he said. Mara stared at the evidence. Her hands were shaking. They lied to my face. Yeah. Rick looked me in the eye and lied. Yeah. She put the phone down carefully like it might explode. What else? They moved through the van methodically. Belts that should have been replaced weren't. Coolant that should have been flushed wasn't. Brake pads worn down to metal, even though her last invoice showed brake service completed. Every discovery was a small detonation. Mara's anger went from hot to cold, from explosive to surgical. She stopped asking questions and started taking notes, writing down part numbers, dates, discrepancies. We need photos, she said. Everything. Multiple angles. Already on it. And receipts? I have all of them. Every invoice they ever gave me. Good, we'll cross-reference. What about witnesses? Other customers they screwed over? Ethan glanced at her. You want to build a case. I want to bury them. He smiled, first time all night. Then we're going to need more coffee. By 6 a.m. they had a file. 63 photographs, 14 invoices, a spreadsheet showing every discrepancy, and a narrative that was damning in its simplicity. Davidson's had charged Mara for services they'd never performed, used substandard parts when they did work, and trapped her in a contract that made her dependent on their incompetence. It was fraud, deliberate, provable. This goes to the state, Ethan said. They'll have to investigate. Mara sat on a stool, staring at the evidence on his laptop screen. Her eyes were bloodshot, face drawn. She looked like she'd aged 5 years in 5 hours. What if they don't care? She asked. They'll care. You don't know that. I do. Because this isn't just fraud, it's a pattern. And if Davidson's did it to you, they've done it to others. The state hates patterns. And if I'm wrong, if I file this complaint and they fight back, they could sue me for defamation or just make my life hell. They could. So why risk it? Ethan closed the laptop. Because right now, you're losing anyway. Your vans are breaking down. Your business is bleeding money. You're trapped in a contract that's killing you. This, he gestured at the evidence, this gives you a chance to fight back. But Not a guarantee. No. Mara stood up, pacing. The shop was quiet except for the rain, softer now, more tired than angry. She moved like she was working through a problem, running calculations only she could see. If I do this, she said, I need to know you're serious, that you're not going to disappear when it gets hard. I won't. How do I know that? You don't. She stopped pacing, looked at him dead on. Who are you, really? Some mechanic working the graveyard shift doesn't just offer to take down a business for free. What's your angle? Ethan could have lied, kept the mask on, but something about this moment, the exhaustion, the honesty, the sheer weight of it, made him tired of pretending. My name's Ethan Vale, he said. I own Vale Industries. I'm worth about $4 billion. I opened this shop because I couldn't stand my own life anymore, and I'm helping you because fixing your van is the first real thing I've done in a year. Mara blinked. Once, twice. You're joking. I'm not. Prove it. He pulled out his phone, opened a browser, typed his name. The results filled the screen. Forbes profiles, business articles, photos of him in suits shaking hands with senators. Mara took the phone, scrolled, read. Her expression went from disbelief to shock to something close to anger. You're a billionaire, she said slowly. Yeah. And you're here, in this shop, at 6 a.m, covered in grease. Yeah. Why? I told you, my life didn't make sense anymore. So you became a mechanic. So I became someone useful. She handed the phone back. This is insane. Probably. You could have just written me a check. Fixed all my problems in 30 seconds. Money doesn't fix this. It just buys time. You need justice, not charity. And you think you can get me that? I think we can get you that. Together. Mara laughed. A real one this time, exhausted and a little hysterical. This is the weirdest night of my life. Mine too. She rubbed her face, thinking. The weight of the decision hung between them. File the complaint, start a war, risk everything on the chance of winning, or walk away, stay trapped, survive another day. Okay, she said finally. Okay? Let's do it. Let's take these bastards down. Ethan felt relief flood through him. You're sure? No, but I'm tired of being scared. She met his eyes. And if a billionaire's willing to fight beside me, maybe I've got a shot. We've got a shot, he corrected. Right. We. She smiled, small, tentative, but real. So what's next? Next, I fix your van well enough to make your delivery. Then we file the complaint. Then we wait. How long? State investigations take weeks, maybe months. I don't have months. Then we make you have them. Ethan stood, moving back to the van. I'll cover your maintenance costs while this plays out. Keep your vans running. No contract, no strings. Just help. I can't pay you back. Didn't ask you to. Ethan. Mara. He turned to face her. I have more money than I know what to do with. It doesn't make me happy. It doesn't make me a better father. It just sits there, growing, meaningless. But this, helping you, fighting this fight, this means something. So let me do it. Not because you owe me, because I need this as much as you do. She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Okay. But when this is over, I'm paying you back, every cent. Deal. They shook hands. Her grip was strong, calloused, real. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Ethan felt like he was exactly where he needed to be. By 8 a.m., the van was running. Not well. Ethan had patched it together with spit, prayers, and parts from his own inventory. But it would make the delivery. Mara stood in the driver's seat, engine idling, rough but steady. This'll get me to Tacoma? Should. Drive gentle. No sudden stops. And call me if anything sounds wrong. What sounds right anymore? Fair point. She started to pull away, then stopped, leaned out the window. Thank you. You already said that. I'm saying it again. Ethan nodded. Be safe. You too. The van rumbled out into the gray Seattle morning, smoke trailing behind it like a wounded animal. Ethan watched until it disappeared, then turned back to his shop. The Silverado still sat on the lift. Transmission half installed. His phone showed 17 missed calls. Diane had texted 3 times, each message progressively more insistent. He should go home. See Sophie before school. Pretend to be the father she deserved. Instead, he pulled up the state licensing board website and started filling out a formal complaint. Because somewhere between midnight and dawn, a woman with nothing had trusted him with everything, and he wasn't going to let her down. Outside, the rain started again. The complaint went live at 9:47 a.m. Ethan hit submit and watched the confirmation page load, feeling like he'd just lit a fuse without knowing how long it was. The Washington State Department of Licensing didn't mess around with fraud allegations, but they also didn't move fast. Wheels turned, forms got routed. Somewhere in Olympia, a bureaucrat would add this to a pile of other complaints, and eventually, maybe, someone would care. He printed the confirmation, filed it in a folder he labeled Quinn vs. Davidson's, and set it on his desk. Then he went back to the Silverado because work didn't stop just because you'd started a war. His phone rang at 10:15. Unknown number. Sterling Automotive, he answered, wedging the phone between his shoulder and ear while torquing down a bolt. Is this Ethan Vale? A woman's voice, clipped, professional. He froze. Nobody called this shop asking for Ethan Vale. That was the whole point. Who's asking? My name is Patricia Denning. I'm an investigator with the Department of Licensing. I'm calling regarding a complaint filed this morning against Davidson's Automotive in Renton. That was fast, too fast. Yeah, I filed it, Ethan said carefully. The complaint lists you as a witness and technical consultant. Is that accurate? It is. And you're also the owner of Sterling Automotive? Yes, but not the plaintiff. That's Amara Quinn. Correct. There was a pause. Paper rustling. Mr. Vale, are you aware that filing a fraudulent complaint is itself a criminal offense? Ethan's grip tightened on the wrench. I'm aware. That's why everything in that complaint is documented and true. We'll determine that. I'd like to schedule an interview, you and Ms. Quinn, as soon as possible. When? Tomorrow, 10 a.m., our office in Olympia. That's 3 hours away. I'm aware. Can you make it or not? Ethan thought about his calendar, meetings he could cancel, calls he could postpone. None of it mattered compared to this. We'll be there, he said. Good. Bring all original documentation. Invoices, photographs, parts if you still have them. And Mr. Vale, don't discuss this case with anyone at Davidson's. If they contact you, refer them to our office. Understood. She hung up without a goodbye. Ethan set the phone down slowly. His hands were shaking, not from fear, from adrenaline. This was real. They were taking it seriously, which meant Davidson's was about to find out they'd been reported. And people didn't like being reported. He texted Mara. State called. Interview tomorrow, 10 a.m. Olympia. They're moving fast. Her response came 30 seconds later. Fast good or fast bad? Don't know yet. Made your delivery? Barely. Van died 2 blocks from the warehouse. Had to get it towed. Currently sitting at a coffee shop trying not to scream. Where's the van now? Impound lot. $200 to get it out. Ethan didn't hesitate. Send me the address. I'll handle it. You don't have to. Send it. 3 dots appeared and disappeared. Then an address in Tacoma. Ethan grabbed his keys. The drive south was a blur of gray sky and wet roads. He'd called Diane on the way, told her to clear his afternoon. She'd asked why. He'd said personal emergency. She'd gone quiet in that way that meant she knew he was lying but wouldn't push. Sophie has a recital tonight, she'd said instead. Spring concert, 7 p.m. Ethan's chest went tight. I know. Do you? Because last month you missed her art show, and the month before that. I know, Diane. She asks for you every night, and every night I have to tell her you're working. I'll be there tonight. Will you? He didn't answer. Couldn't promise something he might not keep. The impound lot was exactly as depressing as expected. Chain link fence, guard shack, rows of vehicles in various states of decay. Ethan paid the fee in cash, signed the release, and watched them bring Mara's van around. It looked worse in daylight. The patches he'd made were visible now. Mismatched hoses, zip-tied connections, prayers holding metal together. It started on the third try, belching smoke. He drove it back to Seattle going 45 in the slow lane, hazards on, waiting for something else to break. Nothing did. Small victories. Mara was waiting at the shop when he arrived, standing in the rain without an umbrella. She looked exhausted, dark circles, hair pulled back, same jacket from last night. "You didn't have to do this," she said as he parked the van. "Yeah, I did. I could have figured it out." "How? You're already broke." I would have managed." "By doing what? Selling blood?" She smiled despite herself. "I've got good veins, could probably get $50. "That's dark. That's my life." They stood there in the rain for a moment, neither moving. Finally, Mara spoke. "The investigator called me too, asked a lot of questions about you." "Like what?" "Like why a stranger would help me. What you're getting out of this. If we're—" She paused. "If we're involved." "What'd you tell her?" "The truth. That you're either the nicest person I've ever met or completely insane. Could be both." "Yeah, that's what worries me." Ethan pulled the folder from his truck. "We need to prep for tomorrow. Go over everything. Make sure our stories match. Our stories are the truth. Truth still needs to be organized. Come on." They spent the next 4 hours at a corner table in a diner 3 blocks from the shop. Ethan spread the documentation across the table. Invoices, photos, notes. Mara walked him through every interaction she'd had with Davidson's, every conversation with Rick, every time she'd questioned a charge and been reassured. "He was smooth," she said, stirring cold coffee. "Always had an answer. Oh, that part's expensive because it's OEM. Or labor costs went up." I didn't know enough to argue. "That's how they get you," Ethan said. "They count on people not knowing, not having the time to learn." I should have known. "Why? You're not a mechanic. You're a business owner trying to survive." "Same thing in my world." Ethan looked up. "What'd you do before this? Before the vans?" Mara hesitated. "You really want to know?" "Yeah. I was a nurse. Pediatric ICU. Worked at Seattle Children's for 6 years. That caught him off guard." "Why'd you leave?" "Burnout. Debt. Take your pick." She stared into her coffee. "I loved it. Loved the kids. Loved helping. But the hours were killing me. 12-hour shifts, sometimes 16. I'd go days without sleeping. And the pay, people think nurses make good money. We don't. Not when you're drowning in student loans." "So you started driving?" "Started delivering medical supplies as a side gig. Figured out I was good at it. Built some relationships. One day I did the math and realized I could make more running my own delivery service than working myself to death in a hospital." She laughed, bitter. "Turns out I was just trading one kind of death for another. You're not dead yet. Give it time." Ethan slid a photo across the table, the oil filter from her van, stamped with a date from 18 months ago. "This is our smoking gun. They billed you for an oil change 3 weeks ago. This filter proves they didn't do it. Will the investigator care? If she's good at her job, yes. This isn't just negligence, it's fraud. They falsified service records." Mara picked up the photo, studying it. "What happens if we win?" "They lose their license, maybe face criminal charges. You get your money back, probably some damages on top. And if we lose, we're out time and effort. They walk free, and you're still trapped in that contract. So basically, I'm screwed either way. Unless we win." "You keep saying we, because it is we. I'm in this with you." She met his eyes. "Why? You still haven't really answered that." Ethan leaned back, thinking. "How did you explain that helping someone else was the first time you'd felt useful in months? That watching your kid grow up through nanny reports and text updates made you feel like a ghost in your own life? That money had solved every problem except the one that mattered?" "I have a daughter," he said finally. "Sophie. She's 5. Her mom left when she was 2. Just walked out one day and never came back." Mara's expression softened. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. She was miserable. The marriage was a mistake. We both knew it." He traced a finger along the edge of the table. "But Sophie, she didn't ask for any of this. Didn't ask for a father who's never home. Who hires people to raise her because he's too busy building empires he doesn't even care about? You care about your company. I care about what it was supposed to be, a way to make things better, solve problems. But somewhere along the way, it just became about making money. And I'm good at that, too good. So I keep doing it, and the money keeps piling up, and Sophie keeps growing up without me. So you opened a repair shop. So I ran away. He looked at her. And then you showed up with a van that was dying and a problem I could actually fix. And for the first time in forever, I felt like I was doing something that mattered. Mara was quiet for a long moment. That's a lot of pressure to put on a broken van. I know. And on me. I'm not asking you to fix my life, Mara. I'm just asking you to let me help fix yours. She studied him, searching for something. You're a weird guy, Ethan Vale. Yeah, I get that a lot. But you're not bullshitting me. I can tell. No, I'm not. She nodded slowly. Okay then. Let's go to Olympia tomorrow and burn Davidson's to the ground. That's the spirit. They worked until the diner closed at 9, organizing documents, rehearsing answers, building a timeline that was airtight. By the time they finished, Ethan's eyes were burning and his back ached from hunching over the table. Mara gathered her papers, stuffing them into a backpack that had seen better days. I should get going. Early start tomorrow. Where are you staying? My van, usually parked behind a gym in Fremont. They don't tow if you're gone by 6. Ethan stared at her. You're living in your van. It's temporary. How temporary? 4 months. Jesus. It's fine. I've got a sleeping bag. Planet Fitness membership for showers. It works. Mara, don't. Her voice went hard. Don't look at me like that. I'm not a charity case. I made choices. This is where they led. I'm handling it. I wasn't going to. Yes, you were. Everyone does. That pity look, like I'm some tragic story. She slung the backpack over her shoulder. I don't need pity. I need my vans fixed and Davidson's in prison. That's it. Ethan held up his hands. Okay, no pity, but I've got a guest room you're not using. Clean bed, hot shower, no strings. I can't. Why not? Because I don't take handouts. It's not a handout. It's logistics. We've got to leave for Olympia at 6:30 tomorrow morning. If you're in Fremont, I've got to pick you up, which adds an hour. If you're at my place, we save time. She narrowed her eyes. That's a very convenient argument. It's also true. Mara chewed her lip, thinking, pride warring with practicality. Finally, she sighed. One night. And I'm gone first thing after the meeting. Deal. They drove separately, Mara in her dying van, Ethan in his truck, both heading north toward Queen Anne. His penthouse was in a building that looked like it had been designed by someone who'd never experienced joy. All glass and steel, brutalist and cold. The doorman nodded at Ethan. Evening, Mr. Vale. Hey, Marcus, she's with me. Mara followed him into the lobby, looking around like she'd stepped onto another planet. Marble floors, abstract art that probably cost more than her entire business. A fountain in the center that served no purpose except to prove someone had money to waste on unnecessary water features. You live here? She asked. Unfortunately. The elevator was glass-walled. They rode up in silence, watching Seattle shrink below them. 42 floors. The city spread out like a circuit board, lights flickering in the rain. How do you sleep up here, Mara asked. Knowing you're this far from the ground? I don't. Sleep, I mean. Not well. The elevator opened directly into his penthouse. Mara stepped out and stopped. The space was massive. 4,000 square feet of open floor plan, floor-to-ceiling windows, furniture that looked expensive because it was. And everywhere, toys. A dollhouse in the corner, coloring books on the coffee table, a pink backpack by the door. Sophie? Mara asked. Yeah. She's asleep. Ethan checked his watch. 9:47. He'd missed the recital. Again. Mara walked through the space slowly, taking it in. This doesn't look like you. It's not. Interior designer did it. I just write the checks. Where's the kid? Her room, down that hall. And you're in? Other side. We're basically neighbors who share a kitchen. That's sad. Yeah. Mara turned to face him. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why are you like this? You've got everything. Money, success, a kid who's alive and healthy, but you're miserable. Why? Ethan didn't have a good answer. Or maybe he had too many. I don't know, he said. Maybe because having everything doesn't mean you've got anything that matters. Or maybe I'm just broken. Take your pick. You're not broken. You're just lonely. The observation landed like a punch, because she was right. He was lonely, had been for years, surrounded by people, employees, business partners, nannies, assistants, but utterly alone. Guest rooms through there, he said, pointing. Bathrooms attached, towels in the closet. Help yourself to whatever. Thanks. I mean it. Food, shower, whatever. Don't be polite. Mara smiled. I'm never polite. I noticed. She headed toward the guest room, then paused. Ethan? Yeah? Thanks. For all of this. I know I'm prickly about it, but thanks. You're welcome. She disappeared into the room. Ethan stood in his kitchen, surrounded by granite and stainless steel, and felt more at home than he had in months. Because someone else was here. Someone real. He checked on Sophie before bed. She was asleep, curled around a stuffed elephant, her face peaceful in the dim glow of her nightlight. He knelt beside her bed, brushing hair from her forehead. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'll do better. I promise. She didn't stir. He kissed her forehead and left, closing the door softly behind him. In his own room, he lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, thinking about oil filters and fraud, and a woman sleeping in his guest room who'd been living in her van for 4 months and never once asked him for anything. Somewhere around 2 a.m., his phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. This is Rick Davidson. We need to talk. Ethan sat up slowly. His first instinct was to delete it. The investigator had said not to engage. But curiosity won. About what? The reply came fast. About the complaint you filed. You don't know what you're doing. I know exactly what I'm doing. No, you don't. That woman, Mara, she's playing you. She owes me money, skipped out on payments. Now she's making up stories to avoid paying. Ethan's jaw tightened. I've seen the evidence. You committed fraud. Evidence can be faked. I've been in this business 20 years, never had a complaint. You really think I'd risk everything over some deadbeat? I think you got greedy. And I think you're some white knight trying to impress a girl. It's pathetic. Ethan's hands clenched around the phone. See you at the investigation. You're making a mistake. Back off now, and maybe I don't sue you for defamation. Try it. He blocked the number and set the phone down. His heart was racing. Rick was scared. That text wasn't a threat. It was panic, which meant they were on the right track, but it also meant things were about to get uglier. He should warn Mara, let her know what they were walking into. But when he passed her door, he heard soft breathing. She was asleep. Actually asleep. Maybe for the first time in days. He'd tell her in the morning. Morning came too fast. Ethan woke at 5:30 to find Mara already awake, showered, sitting at his kitchen island with a cup of coffee and her notes spread out. You sleep? He asked. 3 hours? You? 2. We're a mess. Functional mess. She smiled. Davidson texted me last night. Threatened to sue if I didn't drop the complaint. Me too. What'd you say? Told him to try it. Same. She sipped her coffee. He's scared. Yeah, which makes him dangerous. Think he'll show up today? To the state interview? No. He'll send a lawyer, let them do the talking. What about us? We tell the truth, show the evidence, let it speak for itself. Mara nodded, but her hands were shaking slightly. Ethan covered one with his own. Hey, we've got this. You don't know that. I do, because we're right, and the evidence doesn't lie. Evidence gets ignored all the time. Not this time. She met his eyes. How can you be so sure? Because I've never been more sure of anything in my life. It wasn't entirely true, but it felt true. And sometimes that was enough. They left at 6:30, took Ethan's truck because Mara's van wouldn't make it. The drive to Olympia was quiet. Rain hammered the windshield. Mara went through her notes one more time, lips moving silently. The Department of Licensing building was gray concrete and bureaucratic efficiency. They checked in at the front desk, were given visitor badges, and led to a small conference room on the third floor. Patricia Denning was already waiting. Late 40s, sharp suit, eyes that missed nothing. She stood when they entered, shook hands with both of them. Mr. Vale, Ms. Quinn, thank you for coming. Thanks for seeing us so quickly, Ethan said. When a complaint is this detailed, we take it seriously. She gestured to the chairs. Please sit. They sat. Denning opened a laptop, pulled up files. I've reviewed your complaint and documentation, she said. I have to say, this is one of the more comprehensive fraud allegations I've seen. You did your homework. We wanted to be thorough, Mara said. You were. Almost too thorough. Denning looked at Ethan. Mr. Vale, your background came up in our initial screening. You're not just a mechanic, are you? I own Sterling Automotive and Vale Industries. Yes, which makes you a very wealthy man going after a small business owner. Some might see that as bullying. Ethan felt his stomach drop. That's not what this is. Then what is it? It's justice. Davidson's committed fraud. The evidence proves it. Evidence you collected in your shop. Evidence that could have been tampered with. I didn't tamper with anything. Can you prove that? Mara leaned forward. I was there. The whole time. I watched him document everything. Nothing was faked. Denning's gaze shifted to her. Ms. Quinn, you're in financial distress, correct? Living in your vehicle? Mara's face went hard. What does that have to do with anything? It establishes motive. You owe Davidson's money. This complaint could be seen as retaliation. I owe him money because he charged me for work he didn't do. Or maybe you just don't want to pay your bills. The words hung in the air like a slap. Ethan felt rage building. That's not what happened, he said, voice tight. Then walk me through it, Denning said. Every detail. Because right now, I've got a he said, she said situation, and Davidson's lawyer has already submitted a counterclaim saying you're harassing his client. He texted us last night, Mara said. Threatened to sue if we didn't drop it. Do you have proof of that? Mara pulled out her phone, showed the messages. Denning read them, expression neutral. I'll note this, she said, but texts aren't evidence of fraud. I need hard proof. We have hard proof, Ethan said. He opened his folder, laid out the photos. This oil filter, dated 18 months ago. Mara's invoice shows an oil change 3 weeks ago. That's fraud. Denning examined the photo. How do I know this filter came from her van? Because I pulled it myself. In your shop, where you could have swapped it with an old one. Well, why would I do that? To win the case, to be the hero. She closed the laptop. Look, I'm not saying you're lying. I'm saying this is going to be hard to prove. Davidson's has been in business 20 years. No prior complaints. Good standing with the Better Business Bureau. You're asking me to believe they suddenly turned criminal over a few $1,000s. People get desperate, Mara said quietly. Businesses struggle. Maybe Davidson's isn't doing as well as it looks. Maybe cutting corners was the only way to stay afloat. Denning considered that. It's possible, but I'd need more. Other victims. A pattern. Then find them, Ethan said. Pull Davidson's records. Interview other clients. The pattern's there. That takes time. Months, maybe longer. We don't have months. Then you should have thought of that before filing. The meeting went on for another hour. Questions, documents, more questions. By the end, Ethan felt hollowed out. They'd presented everything perfectly, and it still might not be enough. In the parking lot, Mara sat in the passenger seat of his truck and put her head in her hands. We're going to lose, she said. We don't know that. Yes, we do. She doesn't believe us. She's being cautious. It's her job. It's over, Ethan. Davidson's wins. I'm screwed. No, we keep fighting. With what? We gave them everything. Then we find more. Other clients, build the pattern ourselves. Mara looked up, eyes red. Why are you doing this? Why do you care so much? Because he needed to. Because helping her was the only thing keeping him sane. Because somewhere in the last 48 hours, This had stopped being about a van and started being about something bigger. Because someone has to, he said. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. She stared at him for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, let's find more victims. They drove back to Seattle in silence, both lost in thought. Ethan's mind was racing, how to find other clients, how to prove a pattern, how to win a fight that seemed designed to be unwinnable. His phone rang. Diane. I can't talk right now, he said. You need to. Sophie's school called. She's sick. Fever. They need someone to pick her up. Guilt crashed over him. Where are you? In a meeting you scheduled for today, remember? He didn't. Hadn't even checked his calendar. I'll get her, he said. Ethan, you can't keep doing this, disappearing, forgetting. She needs stability. I know. Do you? Because it doesn't look like it. He hung up, looked at Mara. I have to go, she said. Your kid needs you. I'll drop you at the shop first. I can take the bus. Mara. Ethan, go get your daughter. I'll be fine. He dropped her anyway, watched her walk into the shop, then drove to Sophie's school faster than he should have. She was in the nurse's office, small and pale, hugging her elephant. When she saw him, her face lit up despite the fever. Daddy! Hey, Bug, I hear you're not feeling good. My tummy hurts. Let's get you home. He carried her to the truck, buckled her in, drove home through rain that wouldn't quit. She fell asleep against the window, and he kept glancing over, making sure she was breathing. At home, he put her to bed, gave her medicine, sat beside her until she fell asleep again, and realized he'd been so focused on fixing Mara's problems that he'd almost forgotten he had his own. His phone buzzed, a text from Mara. Van died again. I'm stuck in Georgetown. Don't worry about it. I'll figure it out. Ethan looked at Sophie, small and sick in her bed. Then he texted back. Address? Because he'd made a promise, and he didn't break those. Even when it cost him everything, Ethan called Diane back while Sophie slept, keeping his voice low. I need you to come to the penthouse. Watch Sophie for a few hours. There was a pause. He could hear the disapproval through the phone. She's sick, Ethan. She needs her father, not her father's assistant. I know, and I'll be back. But someone else needs help right now, and I'm the only one who can. There's always someone else. Always another emergency. When does your daughter become the priority? The words hit like a hammer, because Diane was right. She was always right. 2 hours, he said. That's all I'm asking. Another pause. Longer this time. Fine. But Ethan, this can't keep happening. I know. She arrived 20 minutes later, let herself in with the key he'd given her years ago. She found him in Sophie's room, sitting on the floor beside the bed, watching his daughter breathe. She's been asking about her mother again, Diane said quietly from the doorway. Ethan's chest tightened. What'd you tell her? The truth. That sometimes people leave and it's not because of anything we did wrong. She's 5. She doesn't understand that. She understands more than you think. Diane moved into the room, checked Sophie's forehead with the back of her hand. Fever's down a little. Did you give her medicine? Yeah, the children's Tylenol. Purple bottle. Good. She looked at him. Where are you going that's so important? Georgetown. Mara's van died again. Mara, the woman from the complaint. Yeah. The one living in her van. Not anymore. I'm working on that. Diane's expression shifted to something between concern and frustration. Ethan, you can't save everyone. I'm not trying to save everyone, just her. Why? He didn't have an answer that would make sense because it felt right. Because helping Mara made him feel useful in a way running a billion-dollar company never had. Because she'd looked him in the eye and trusted him when she had every reason not to. Because someone should, he said finally. Diane shook her head. 2 hours. After that, I'm calling you every 10 minutes until you come home. Deal. He kissed Sophie's forehead one more time, grabbed his keys, and left before he could change his mind. The address Mara had sent led to a side street behind a warehouse, the kind of place that looked abandoned but probably wasn't. Her van was there, Hood up, smoke no longer rising, but the smell of burnt oil thick in the air. Mara sat on the curb beside it, head in her hands. Ethan parked and got out. You okay? She looked up. Her eyes were red, but whether from crying or exhaustion, he couldn't tell. Define okay. Not bleeding, still breathing. Then, yeah, I'm fantastic. He crouched beside the van, peered under the hood. The damage was worse this time. The patch job he'd done had failed completely. Coolant mixed with oil, gaskets blown, and something in the engine block had cracked. This wasn't fixable with zip ties and prayers. It's done, he said. I know. I mean really done. Even if I rebuild it, the frame's compromised. It'll just keep breaking. So what do I do? You need a new van. Mara laughed, sharp and bitter. Sure. Let me just pull 10 grand out of my ass. I can Don't. She stood up fast. Don't offer to buy me a van. Don't offer to loan me money. Don't do any of that. Mara, I mean it, Ethan. I know you're trying to help. I know you're a good person, but I can't take charity. Not from you. Not from anyone. It's not charity. It's a business investment. In what business? I'm done. This van was my last one. The other two are in even worse shape. Davidson's has been bleeding me dry for 2 years and I didn't even know it. I'm broke. Homeless. And now I don't even have a way to make money. She kicked the van's tire. It's over. It's not over. Yes, it is. No. Ethan stood, facing her. We're going to win this case. The state's going to investigate Davidson's. They're going to find the pattern. And when they do, you'll get restitution. Enough to rebuild. That could take months, years. What do I do until then? Keep sleeping in parking lots? Keep showering at Planet Fitness? You stay with me. The words came out before he'd fully thought them through. Mara stared at him. What? You stay at my place. Guest room. No rent, no strings, just a place to sleep while we figure this out. That's insane. Probably. I can't live with you. Why not? The room's empty. You'd be doing me a favor, honestly. The place is too big and too quiet. Ethan, I'm not a charity case. And I'm not offering charity. I'm offering a room. That's it. He met her eyes. Look, you helped me realize something. My life doesn't make sense because I'm not living it. I'm just going through motions. Work, home, Sophie. Repeat. But helping you, fighting this fight, it's the first time in forever I felt like I'm doing something that matters. So I'm your midlife crisis project? Maybe. Or maybe you're just someone who deserves help and I'm someone who can give it. Does it matter which? Mara looked away, jaw working, pride and pragmatism at war again. 1 month, she said finally. That's it. 1 month while we deal with Davidson's. After that, I'm gone. 1 month. And I'm paying you back. Every dollar. I don't care if it takes 10 years. Fine. I'm serious. I know you are. That's why I'm agreeing. She shook her head. You're crazy. Yeah, I've been told that. They stood there in the rain, two people who made no sense together but somehow fit anyway. Then Mara's phone rang. She answered, listened, and her face went pale. When? She asked. Then, are you sure? A pause. Okay, yeah, thank you. She hung up slowly. What? Ethan asked. That was the state investigator, Denning. She said Davidson's filed a restraining order against me. What? He's claiming I've been harassing him, threatening his business, showing up at his shop. That's bullshit. You haven't been anywhere near his shop. I know, but he's got witnesses saying otherwise. People willing to testify I've been there, making scenes. Ethan felt rage building. He's manufacturing evidence, and it's working. Denning said, if the restraining order goes through, it'll damage our credibility, make it look like I'm unstable, vindictive. We'll fight it. With what? We can barely prove the fraud case. How are we supposed to prove I wasn't somewhere when he's got people saying I was? Ethan thought fast. Alibi. Where were you the days he's claiming you showed up? I don't know, working, driving, alone. Receipt, GPS data from your phone? Maybe, I'd have to check. Then check. We need to prove he's lying. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling my lawyer. You have a lawyer? I have 6, but only one I actually trust. The call connected, a woman's voice, crisp and professional. Ethan, it's been a while. Hey, Lauren, I need help. Of course you do. What's the situation? He explained quickly the fraud case, the restraining order, Davidson's counterclaims. Lauren listened without interrupting. This is messy, she said when he finished. I know. And you're emotionally involved. I'm helping someone who needs it. That's what I said. Emotionally involved. A pause. But you're right. This sounds like witness tampering and falsified evidence. I can file a motion to dismiss the restraining order, get a hearing scheduled. How long? Week, maybe 2. We don't have 2 weeks. Then you should have called me sooner. Her voice softened. Ethan, what are you doing? This isn't your fight. Yes, it is. Why? Is there something between you and this woman? No, she's just... He stopped, looked at Mara, who was watching him with an expression he couldn't read. She's someone who deserves better than what she got, and I can help. You can't save everyone. That's the second time someone's told me that today. Maybe you should listen. Maybe, but I'm not going to. Lauren sighed. Fine, send me everything. Complaint, evidence, restraining order documents. I'll start working on it. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This is going to get ugly. She hung up. Ethan turned to Mara. My lawyer's on it. How much is this going to cost me? Nothing. I'm covering it. Ethan, add it to the list of things you're paying me back for. But right now, we need to focus on building your alibi. Pull up your phone's location history. Any apps that track where you've been. They spent the next hour in his truck going through her phone. Google Maps showed her route history, deliveries, gas stations, the coffee shop where she'd worked between runs. Nothing near Davidson's shop in Renton. This is good, Ethan said. Shows you weren't there. But it doesn't prove Davidson's lying, just that I wasn't where he said I was. It's a start. His phone rang. Diane. 2 hours are up, she said without preamble. I need more time. Sophie's asking for you. She woke up crying. Guilt crushed him. I'm on my way. Are you? 20 minutes, I promise. He hung up, looked at Mara. I have to go. Sophie's sick and I've already been gone too long. Go. I'll figure out how to get the van towed. Leave it. I'll send someone tomorrow. Ethan, just leave it, please. He handed her his truck keys. Take this. Drive to my place. Guest room's yours. Security code is 4227. I can't take your truck. You can and you will. I'll get an Uber. He was already pulling out his phone, ordering a ride. Go. Get some rest. We'll regroup tomorrow. She took the keys slowly. Your daughter comes first. You know that, right? I know. Then stop trying to save me and go save her. The Uber arrived before he could respond. He got in, gave the driver his address, and watched Mara disappear in his rearview mirror. At home, Sophie was awake but groggy, still feverish. Diane had given her another dose of medicine and put on a movie. Daddy! Sophie reached for him. Ethan scooped her up, held her close. She was so small, so fragile. How had he forgotten that? I'm here, Bug. I'm not going anywhere. Diane watched from the doorway. I'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. We have that conference call with the Tokyo office. Cancel it. Ethan, cancel it. I'm staying home with Sophie. For how long? However long she needs. Diane's expression softened. Okay, I'll handle it. After she left, Ethan settled on the couch with Sophie curled against him. The movie played, something animated with talking animals, but he wasn't watching. He was thinking about Mara, alone in his penthouse guest room, about Davidson's and fraud and restraining orders, about battles he'd started without knowing how they'd end. Daddy? Sophie's voice was small. Yeah, Bug? Are you going to leave again? The question gutted him. No, I'm right here. You always say that, and then you leave. She wasn't accusing, just stating fact, which somehow made it worse. I know, he said quietly, and I'm sorry. I've been making mistakes, bad ones, but I'm going to do better. Promise? He wanted to. Wanted to promise he'd never leave, never miss another recital or art show or bedtime. But he'd made promises before and broken them. I promised to try, he said. Really, really hard. Is that okay? Sophie thought about it, then nodded. Okay. She fell asleep in his arms 20 minutes later. He carried her to bed, tucked her in, and stood there watching her breathe, marveling at how something so small could matter so much. His phone buzzed, a text from Mara. Made it to your place. This is insane. Your apartment is bigger than every place I've ever lived combined. He smiled. Guest room okay? It has a bathtub, an actual bathtub. I might never leave. Take your time. How's Sophie? Sleeping, fever's down. Good. Go be with her. Stop texting me. Yes, ma'am. He set the phone down and climbed into bed, exhausted but unable to sleep. His mind kept circling back to Davidson's, to the restraining order, to the fight that was escalating faster than he'd expected. At 2 a.m., he gave up and went to his home office, pulled up everything they had on Davidson's, started digging deeper. The shop had been open 23 years. Rick Davidson had inherited it from his father. On paper, everything looked clean. No complaints with the Better Business Bureau, good reviews online, a few negative ones, but nothing unusual. But when Ethan started looking at business records, public filings, tax documents, cracks appeared. Davidson's revenue had dropped 40% over the last 5 years. They'd taken out loans, refinanced twice. The building they operated from was mortgaged to the hilt. They were struggling, badly. Which explained the fraud. When businesses got desperate, ethics became negotiable. Cut corners here, overcharge there. Most customers wouldn't notice. And the ones who did? Well, that's what contracts and intimidation were for. Ethan's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Hello? Mr. Vale, this is Rick Davidson. Ethan sat up straight. How'd you get this number? Not important. We need to talk. My lawyer said... I know what your lawyer said. I also know you've got deep pockets and a savior complex. So here's the deal. Back off. Drop the complaint. Pay Mara's debts to me, and we all walk away clean. Her debts to you are fake. You defrauded her. Says you. My lawyers say otherwise. Then I guess we'll let the state decide. The state? Rick laughed. The state's got 100 cases like this. They're overworked and underfunded. You think they care about some delivery driver and her broken vans? They'll take one look at my pristine record and laugh you out of the office. We'll see. No, you won't. Because here's what's going to happen. I'm going to drag this out, file motion after motion, bury you in paperwork. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to make sure every shop in Seattle knows not to touch Mara's vans. She'll be blacklisted, unable to get parts, unable to get service. Her business will die slowly while you watch. You can't do that. I already am. Made some calls today, friendly conversations with other shop owners. Told them there's a woman going around making false accusations. Advised them to avoid her, for their own protection, of course. Ethan's grip tightened on the phone. That's illegal. Prove it. Conversations between business owners aren't recorded. It's my word against yours. And I've got 23 years of reputation. You've got a shop that's been open for what? A year? 11 months? Exactly. You're nobody. And Mara? She's less than nobody. So here's my final offer. 50 grand. Covers her alleged debts, plus compensation for the stress this has caused me. You write the check, she signs a release, and we're done. No. Think carefully. 50 grand is nothing to you, but for her it's everything. You could end this right now. Be her hero. Isn't that what you want? Ethan wanted to reach through the phone and choke him, but Rick was right about one thing. 50 grand was nothing. Pocket change. He could write the check, make this go away, let Mara rebuild without the weight of this fight. But it wouldn't be justice. It would be a payoff. And guys like Rick would keep doing this to other people. Other Maras who didn't have a billionaire willing to fight for them. The answer's no, Ethan said. See you in court. He hung up. His hands were shaking. The next morning, Sophie was better, fever gone, color back in her cheeks. She ate breakfast, actual breakfast, not just crackers, and wanted to watch cartoons. Ethan stayed with her, called Diane, told her to clear his schedule for the week. She didn't argue, just said she'd handle it. At noon, Mara emerged from the guest room looking like she'd actually slept. Her hair was damp, face clean. She'd borrowed one of his old t-shirts and it hung on her like a dress. "Morning," she said. "Afternoon," he corrected. "Right, sorry. I slept hard." She noticed Sophie on the couch. "Hey, you must be Sophie." Sophie looked up, studied Mara with the serious expression kids get when they're deciding if someone's safe. "You're pretty," Sophie said finally. Mara smiled. "Thanks. You too." "Are you Daddy's friend?" "I think so, yeah." "Good. He needs more friends." Ethan felt his chest tighten, out of the mouths of children. Mara came into the kitchen, keeping her voice low. "Davidson called you last night, didn't he? I heard your phone ring. How'd you know it was him?" "Because mine rang too, about 20 minutes before yours. Offered me 20 grand to drop the complaint and disappear." "What'd you say?" "I told him to go to hell." She poured coffee. "Then he said if I didn't take the deal, he'd make sure I never worked in Seattle again. That he'd blacklist me with every shop, every parts supplier, everyone. He told me the same thing." "You think he can do it?" "Probably. Business owners talk. Reputation matters. If he spreads the right rumors, you'll be toxic. So we're screwed. Or we go nuclear." Mara looked at him. "What does that mean?" "It means we stop playing defense. We find every other person Davidson's has screwed over. Build a class action. Turn this from one complaint into a pattern so big the state can't ignore it." "How do we find them?" "Reviews, online complaints. We look for anyone who's mentioned Davidson's negatively. Reach out, ask questions, build the case ourselves. That could take weeks. Then we work fast." Ms. Sophie appeared in the kitchen doorway, holding her stuffed elephant. "Daddy, can Mara stay for lunch?" "If she wants to." "I make good grilled cheese, like," Sophie said seriously. Mara smiled. "Then I'm definitely staying." They spent the afternoon together, an odd little trio that shouldn't have worked, but somehow did. Sophie showed Mara her toys, her drawings, her collection of rocks from the park. Mara listened like each rock was precious, and Ethan watched them, feeling something shift in his chest, his daughter laughing with someone who wasn't paid to be there, someone real. That evening, after Sophie was in bed, Ethan and Mara sat in his living room with laptops and coffee, searching through online reviews of Davidson's. "Here's one," Mara said. "Guy named Carlos Martinez, posted 6 months ago. Says they charged him $800 for a timing belt replacement that never happened. Send him a message, explain what we're doing, see if he'll talk." They found 12 more. Some were vague complaints. Others were specific, overcharges, shoddy work, parts that failed too soon. Each one a potential witness. Ethan drafted a template message explaining the state investigation, asking if they'd be willing to share their experience. Sent it to everyone. "What if nobody responds?" Mara asked. "Then we keep looking. And if we run out of places to look, we won't." She studied him. "You're really in this, aren't you? Like, all the way in?" "Yeah." "Why?" "I already told you." "No. You gave me the PR answer. The I want to help answer. I want the real one." Ethan set his laptop aside, looked at her directly. "You want the truth? I'm in this because for the first time in 5 years, I feel like I'm doing something that matters. Building my company mattered once. Making money mattered. But somewhere along the way, it stopped. It became automatic. I'd show up, make decisions, watch the stock price climb, and feel nothing, just empty." He paused. "Then you walked into my shop at 3 a.m. with a van that was dying and you didn't beg, didn't ask for handouts, just stated facts and asked for help. And something about that, about you, woke me up. Made me remember what it felt like to fix something real." Mara was quiet for a long moment. "That's a lot of pressure to put on one person," she said finally. "I know. And if it's too much, tell me. I'll back off." "No, I'm not asking you to back off. I'm just..." She shook her head. I'm not used to people actually showing up. Everyone in my life has bailed when things got hard. My ex, my family, even friends I thought I could count on. So when you keep showing up, keep fighting, it's hard to believe it's real. It's real. Is it? Or are you going to wake up one day and realize this was a mistake? That I'm not worth the trouble? You're worth it. You don't know that. You barely know me. I know enough. She met his eyes, and for a moment something passed between them. Not attraction, or not just that. Understanding, maybe. Recognition. Two people who'd been lost finding each other in the wreckage. Then Mara's phone buzzed. She checked it, and her face went pale. What? Ethan asked. Email from Denning, the investigator. She read it, hands starting to shake. She's closing the case. What? Says based on the restraining order and lack of additional evidence, she's recommending no further action. Davidson's is cleared. Ethan grabbed his phone, found the same email. Read it twice to make sure he wasn't misunderstanding. They'd lost, before the fight had even really started. No, he said. No, she can't just... She did. Mara set her phone down carefully. It's over. We can appeal, file a new complaint, go higher up the chain. To who? With what evidence? Ethan, we showed them everything, and it wasn't enough. Davidson's won. I'm done. You're not done. Yes, I am. She stood up. Thank you for trying, really, but I need to go. Go where? I don't know, anywhere but here. Mara, it's almost midnight. I'll figure it out, I always do. She headed toward the guest room. Ethan followed. Don't do this, don't run. I'm not running. I'm accepting reality. She started gathering her things, the few she had. This was stupid, thinking we could win, thinking I deserved justice. People like me don't get justice. We just survive. That's not true. Yes, it is. You live in a different world, Ethan. A world where money solves problems and lawyers fight your battles and things work out because you can afford to make them work out. But my world is broken vans and parking lot showers and guys like Davidson who know they can screw me over because I can't fight back. And I was an idiot to think you could change that. The words hit like punches, because part of him knew she was right. He did live in a different world, one where 50 grand was nothing and 6 lawyers were a phone call away. But that didn't mean he was going to quit. Fine, he said. You're right. I live in a different world. But you know what that means? It means I have resources, connections, money, and I can use all of it to keep fighting, even if you're done. Why would you do that? Because it's the right thing to do. Nobody does the right thing just because it's right. I do. She stared at him, searching for the lie, the angle, the moment when he'd reveal this was all some elaborate game. She wouldn't find it, because it wasn't there. You're insane, she said finally. Probably. And you're going to lose. Maybe. And you're okay with that? No. But I'm less okay with letting Davidson win. Mara sat down on the bed, sudden and heavy, like her legs had given out. She put her face in her hands. I can't do this anymore, she said, voice muffled. I'm so tired of fighting, of losing, of pretending I'm strong when I'm barely holding it together. Ethan sat beside her, didn't touch her, just sat close. You don't have to be strong, not right now. Yes, I do. If I stop, I'll fall apart. Then fall apart. I'll be here when you're done. She looked up at him, her eyes were wet. Why do you care so much? I don't know. I just do. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. They sat in silence. Then Mara spoke, voice barely above a whisper. When I was a nurse, we had this patient, 8 years old, leukemia. She was there for months. Chemo, radiation, the whole nightmare. And every day I'd watch her fight, watch her smile even when she was in pain, watch her parents hold it together even though they were breaking. She paused. One night, her vitals crashed. Code blue. We worked on her for 40 minutes, did everything we could. But she died anyway. And I remember standing there after, covered in her blood, thinking, what's the point? We fought so hard, did everything right, and she still died. Mara, That's when I left nursing, because I couldn't take losing anymore. Couldn't take fighting battles that didn't matter. So I started driving, delivering boxes. Simple, easy. No one dies if I screw up. She looked at him. But this fight with Davidson's? It's the first time in years I've cared about something enough to risk losing. And now that I'm losing, I remember why I stopped caring in the first place. Ethan felt his throat tighten. You haven't lost yet. Yes, I have. You just don't want to admit it. Her phone buzzed again. She ignored it. It buzzed 2 more times. Check it, Ethan said. She did. And her expression changed. What? It's responses to the messages we sent. She scrolled through. Carlos Martinez, he's in. Wants to help, and someone named Jennifer Park. She says Davidson's charged her $1,200 for break work they never did. She kept scrolling. There's more, 5, 6, 7 people, all saying Davidson screwed them. Ethan felt hope flare. That's the pattern. That's what we need. But Denning already closed the case. Then we go over her head, file a new complaint with the Attorney General. Class action fraud. Too big to ignore. Mara stared at the messages, then at him. You really think we can win? I think we have to try. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay, one more shot. But if this doesn't work, it'll work. You can't know that. No, but I can believe it. And right now, that's enough. They worked through the night again, documenting each new complaint, building timelines, cross-referencing invoices with actual work done. By dawn, they had a file that was damning. 14 victims. Over $30,000 in fraudulent charges. A pattern that spanned 5 years. Ethan called Lauren at 7 a.m. This better be important, she said, voice thick with sleep. It is. We've got a class action. 14 plaintiffs, all defrauded by Davidson's. I need you to file with the AG's office today. Today? Ethan, these things take time to prepare. We don't have time. Davidson's is actively threatening witnesses. If we don't move fast, people will back out. A pause, then, send me everything. I'll see what I can do. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. The AG's office doesn't move fast on these things, even with 14 victims. Then make them move. I'll try, but Ethan, this is going to cost you. Not just money, time, energy, reputation. Are you sure you want to go this far? He looked at Mara, asleep on his couch with her laptop still open, exhausted from a night of fighting when she should have given up hours ago. Yeah, he said. I'm sure. Okay, then let's burn them down. She hung up. Ethan set the phone down and checked on Sophie, still asleep, still safe. Then he went to the window and watched the sun rise over Seattle, wondering how a simple repair job had turned into a war, and whether he'd survive it. The Attorney General's office called 3 days later. Ethan was making Sophie pancakes when his phone rang. She was at the kitchen table coloring, finally back to herself after the fever. Mara was there too, sitting across from Sophie, helping her pick colors for what appeared to be a very ambitious rainbow. This is Ethan Vale, he answered, spatula in hand. Mr. Vale, this is Assistant Attorney General Rachel Kwan. I'm calling regarding the complaint filed by your attorney against Davidson's Automotive. Ethan's pulse quickened. He mouthed a G's office to Mara. Her head snapped up. Yes, thank you for calling. I've reviewed the documentation. 14 complainants is significant. The pattern of fraudulent billing is concerning. I'd like to move forward with a formal investigation. Relief flooded through him. That's great, thank you. Don't thank me yet. This is going to be a process. We'll need statements from all 14 victims. Full documentation of every transaction. And Mr. Vale? Davidson's has retained counsel, a firm out of Bellevue. They're aggressive. We can handle aggressive. Can you? Because they've already filed a countersuit. Defamation, harassment, tortious interference with business relations. They're asking for $2 million in damages. The number hung in the air like a threat. Let them ask, Ethan said. They're also requesting your financial records, claiming you're using your wealth to bully a small business owner. That's ridiculous. Maybe, But it plays well, billionaire versus local shop owner. The optics aren't great. The facts are great. That's what matters. Quan was quiet for a moment. I like your optimism, but this is going to get ugly. Are you prepared for that? Yes. And Ms. Quinn? Is she prepared because she's the primary plaintiff? Her face will be on this. Her name, her past. Everything will be scrutinized. Ethan looked at Mara. She was watching him, trying to read his expression. She's ready, he said. Good. Then let's proceed. I'll need all 14 complainants in my office next week for recorded statements. Can you make that happen? We'll make it happen. And Mr. Vale, one more thing. If at any point you want to settle this quietly, now's the time. Once we go public with an AG investigation, there's no walking it back. No, we're not settling. Even if it costs you millions? Even then. All right, I'll be in touch. She hung up. Ethan set the phone down carefully. We're in? Mara asked. We're in. And they're suing us for $2 million. They're suing me, not you. Same thing. No, it's not. That's my problem to handle. Sophie looked up from her coloring. Daddy, your pancake is burning. Smoke was rising from the pan. Ethan swore under his breath and flipped it. The bottom was black. I like it crispy, Sophie said diplomatically. Mara stood up, took the spatula from him. Sit. I'll finish. You don't have to, sit before you burn the kitchen down. He sat, watched her work the stove with the efficiency of someone who'd cooked in worse conditions. She plated the salvageable pancakes, scraped the burnt one into the trash, started fresh. $2 million, she said quietly. That's insane. It's a scare tactic. They won't win. But they could. And if they do, you'd lose money I don't need. Mara, I'm worth $4 billion. $2 million is 0.05% of my net worth. It's a rounding error. It's not a rounding error to me. It's more money than I'll see in my entire life, which is exactly why we're doing this. So guys like Davidson can't keep bleeding people dry. She flipped a pancake. You know what's crazy? A month ago, my biggest problem was a busted radiator hose. Now I'm in the middle of a lawsuit against a guy who wants to destroy me. And I'm living in a billionaire's penthouse making pancakes for his kid. My life doesn't make sense anymore. Join the club, Ethan said. Sophie raised her hand. Can I join the club? You're the president, Mara told her. What does the president do? Eats pancakes and looks cute. You're overqualified. Sophie giggled. It was a sound Ethan hadn't heard enough of lately. The pancakes were perfect. They ate together, the three of them, like some weird approximation of a family. Afterward, Mara helped Sophie wash up while Ethan called the 14 complainants and scheduled them for statements with the AG's office. 12 said yes immediately. 1 needed convincing. The last, Carlos Martinez, asked to meet in person first. I want to look you in the eye, Carlos said. Make sure this is real before I put my name on anything official. Where and when? My shop. I run a small garage in Beacon Hill. You know where that is? I'll find it. Tomorrow, noon, and bring proof this isn't some con. What kind of proof? I don't know. Whatever proves you're legit, because if Davidson sent you to screw with me, I'll know. He hung up before Ethan could respond. Paranoid? Mara asked. She'd been listening. Smart. If I were him, I'd be paranoid too. Want me to come with? Yeah, he should meet you. You're the real deal. I'm just the guy with the checkbook. You're more than that. Am I? She met his eyes. Yeah, you are. The moment stretched between them. Then Sophie appeared, dragging her backpack. Daddy, I need to go to school. Ethan checked his watch. He'd completely lost track of time. Right, school. Let me get my keys. I can take her, Mara offered. You don't have to. I know, but you've got calls to make, and I've got nothing but time. She looked at Sophie. Want to ride with me? Sophie nodded enthusiastically. 20 minutes later, Ethan watched from the window as Mara and Sophie left in his truck. His daughter was chattering about something, animated in a way she usually wasn't, and Mara was listening like every word mattered. His phone rang. Lauren. The countersuit is official. she said without preamble. I just got served. $2 million in damages. They're claiming you're orchestrating a campaign to destroy Davidson's business. I'm helping fraud victims seek justice. They're calling it a vendetta, and they've got affidavits from 3 shop owners saying you contacted them, trying to recruit people to lie about Davidson. That's bullshit. We reached out to legitimate complainants. I know, but they're spinning it, making you look like the aggressor. What do? We fight it. But Ethan, this is going to be public, like front page public. Billionaire accused of vendetta against small business. The media will eat it up. Let them. The truth is on our side. The truth doesn't always win in the court of public opinion. Then we make sure it wins in actual court. Lauren sighed. You're exhausting. You know that? I've been told. Fine. We go to war, but I'm billing you my crisis rate. Bill me whatever you want, just win. The meeting with Carlos Martinez was tense from the start. His shop was small, 2 bays, hand-painted sign, the kind of place that survived on reputation and word of mouth. Carlos himself was mid-50s, tattooed arms, expression that suggested he'd heard every lie and seen every con. You're Vale, he said. Not a question. Yeah. And you? He looked at Mara. Mara Quinn. I'm the one who filed the original complaint. Carlos studied them both. Prove you're who you say you are. Ethan pulled out his phone, showed his driver's license, a Forbes article with his picture. Carlos barely glanced at it. Anyone can fake that stuff. Show me something real. Like what? Show me you know what you're talking about. Tell me what Davidson's did to you. He pointed at Mara. She didn't hesitate. They charged me for oil changes they never did. Replaced parts with substandard versions and billed me for OEM. Kept me trapped in a contract that made me dependent on their shop. Then when I couldn't pay anymore, they sabotaged my van so it would keep breaking down. Proof? She pulled out her phone, showed him the photos Ethan had taken. The old oil filter, the wrong-sized belts, the invoices that didn't match the work. Carlos examined each one carefully, then nodded. Yeah, they did the same to me. Different scam, same result. He gestured them inside. Come on, I'll show you. His office was cramped, papers stacked everywhere. He dug through a filing cabinet and pulled out a folder. 2 years ago, my truck needed transmission work. Davidson's quoted me $3,800, said they'd rebuild it, good as new. I paid half up front. They kept my truck for 3 weeks. When I finally got it back, it ran like garbage, worse than before. Did you confront them? Ethan asked. Of course. Rick said I must have driven it wrong, voided the warranty, refused to refund my deposit. He showed them the invoice. $1,900 gone, and my truck still doesn't shift right. Why didn't you report them? Carlos laughed bitterly. To who? I'm an independent mechanic. No lawyer. No money for a lawsuit. Guys like Davidson count on that. They know we can't fight back. But you can now, Mara said. With us. Maybe. Or maybe this is all smoke. Rich guy playing hero until he gets bored. He looked at Ethan. Why should I believe you'll see this through? Because I've already spent $60,000 on lawyers. Because I've been threatened, sued, and accused of fraud. And I'm not stopping until Davidson's loses everything. That's not an answer. That's just stubbornness. Then what do you want me to say? Tell me why you care. Really care. Not the PR version. Ethan glanced at Mara. She nodded slightly. I have a 5-year-old daughter, he said. Her mom left when she was 2. Since then, I've thrown myself into work, built a company worth billions, and convinced myself that providing for her was the same as being there for her. But it's not, and I've been failing her. He paused. Then Mara showed up with a van that was dying and a problem I could actually solve. And for the first time in years, I felt useful. Not rich, not powerful, just useful. And I'm not letting that go. Carlos studied him for a long moment. Then he closed the folder. Okay, I'm in. But if you bail, I'm coming after you. I don't care how rich you are. Fair enough. They shook hands. Walking back to the truck, Mara was quiet. You okay? Ethan asked. Yeah, just thinking. About? About how many people Davidson's has hurt. Carlos isn't the only one running a small shop barely staying afloat. How many others are out there who got screwed and never said anything? Probably a lot. And we're only going after the ones we can prove. The rest just lose. We can't save everyone, Mara. I know, but we should try. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He kept running through scenarios. What if they lost? What if the AG dropped the case? What if Davidson's countersuit actually succeeded? At 2 a.m., he gave up and went to the kitchen. Found Mara already there, sitting in the dark with a cup of tea. Can't sleep either? He asked. I haven't slept well in 4 years, not since I left nursing. He poured himself water, sat across from her. You ever regret it? Leaving? Every day. But I couldn't stay. Watching people die, knowing you did everything right, and it still wasn't enough. It breaks you. She stared into her tea. There was this one shift. We had 3 codes in 4 hours. 2 of them we got back. The third, she was 6. Drowning accident. By the time they brought her in, she'd been without oxygen too long. But we tried anyway. Worked on her for an hour. And when we finally called it, her mother screamed. Just screamed. The sound I'll never forget. I'm sorry. I went home that night and realized I couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't be the person telling parents their kid was gone. Couldn't hold it together when everything inside me was falling apart. So I quit. And I've been running ever since. You're not running now. Aren't I? This whole thing with Davidson's, part of me wonders if I'm just fighting because it's easier than dealing with the real stuff. What real stuff? The fact that I'm 30 years old, living in someone else's guest room, with a business that's dead and a life that went nowhere. Iti altipuan masikin. She looked at him. You think I'm brave? I'm not. I'm just too stubborn to quit. Stubborn and brave look the same from the outside. Maybe, or maybe I'm just good at faking it. Ethan leaned forward. You want to know what I see when I look at you? I see someone who's been knocked down 100 times and gets up every single time. Someone who could have walked away from this fight, but didn't. Someone who's more worried about other people Davidson's hurt than about herself. That's not fake. That's real. Mara's eyes were bright. You barely know me. I know enough. Do you? Because I'm kind of a mess, Ethan. I'm broke, homeless, angry most of the time. I push people away because it's easier than letting them in. And I'm probably going to disappoint you eventually. Everyone disappoints everyone eventually. That's called being human. Yeah, well, I'm really good at it. Then we'll be really good at it together. She smiled despite herself. You're such a weirdo. I've been told that a lot lately. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Mara spoke again. If we win this, and that's a big if, what happens after? What do you mean? I mean with us, this weird friendship or partnership or whatever it is. Does it just end? Why would it end? Because you'll go back to your life, running your company, being a billionaire, and I'll go back to mine. Whatever that looks like. Or maybe we just keep doing this, fighting for people who can't fight for themselves. That's not a business model. Who says it needs to be? Maybe it's just what we do. Mara considered that. You'd really do that? Give up your company to chase fraud cases? I haven't given up my company. I've just stopped letting it define me. What defines you now? He thought about it. Sophie, this fight, you. The words hung between them. Mara looked away first. That's a lot of pressure, she said quietly. I don't mean it like that. I just mean you've changed things for the better. Have I? Or have I just dragged you into a mess? Both. But I needed the mess. She met his eyes again. You're really weird, you know that? You've mentioned it. The hearing was scheduled for the following week. All 14 complainants showed up at the AG's office in downtown Seattle. Ethan had rented a conference room nearby, and they gathered there first, a mix of people who'd never met but shared the same story. Carlos was there. Jennifer Park, the woman who'd been charged for break work that never happened. A couple in their 60s who'd lost $3,000 to phantom repairs. A delivery driver like Mara, who'd had 2 vans destroyed by Davidson's neglect. Rachel Kwan walked them through what to expect. The questions, the pressure, the fact that Davidson's lawyers would try to discredit them. They'll say you're lying for money, she explained, that you're part of a coordinated effort led by Mr. Vale here. They'll dig into your backgrounds, looking for anything they can use. What if they find something? One woman asked nervously. Then we deal with it. Honesty is your best defense. If you made mistakes in the past, own them, but be clear about what Davidson's did to you. And if we mess up? Jennifer asked. Then we correct it. This isn't a trial yet. It's just statements, information gathering, but it matters. So tell the truth. All of it. One by one, they went into recorded sessions. Ethan waited outside with Mara, watching people emerge looking drained. This is harder than I thought, Mara said. What is? Watching people relive getting screwed over, seeing how much it still hurts. They're doing it because of you, because you went first. That doesn't make me feel better. It makes me feel responsible. You are responsible for giving them a chance to fight back. When Mara's turn came, Ethan waited in the hall, pacing. She was in there for 90 minutes. When she emerged, her eyes were red, but her expression was steel. How'd it go? He asked. I told them everything, the fraud, the threats, the fact that I've been living in my van. They recorded all of it. Good. Is it? Because now it's permanent, on record. My life is officially a disaster in government files. Your life is officially evidence of a crime. There's a difference. That night, news broke. A local station picked up the story. Attorney General investigating prominent rent-and auto shop for fraud. 14 victims. Millions in potential damages. And buried in the third paragraph, Ethan's name. His phone started ringing immediately. Media requests. Interview offers. By morning, it had exploded. The Seattle Times ran a front-page story. Billionaire's crusade against auto shop raises questions. The angle was exactly what Lauren had warned about. Rich guy bullying small business. Davidson's lawyer gave an interview painting Rick as the victim. A hardworking shop owner being targeted by a wealthy elite with a savior complex. Mr. Vale has never run an auto shop, the lawyer said on camera. He has no understanding of the industry, yet he's decided to destroy a family business that served this community for 23 years. Why? Because he's bored. Because he can. Ethan watched the interview with Mara. His hands clenched into fists. Breathe, she said. This is bullshit. It's strategy. They're playing to public sympathy. It's working. Look at the comments. He showed her his phone. Social media was lighting up. Half the people were calling Davidson's a fraud. The other half were calling Ethan a bully. One comment stood out. Rich people are so out of touch. This guy probably spends more on coffee than Davidson's makes in a year, and he wants to destroy them over what, a few $1,000s? Pathetic. Turn it off, Mara said. They don't know what happened. They don't know what he did to you, to all of those people. No, they don't. And they won't unless we change the narrative. How? She thought for a moment. We tell our story, the real one, not through lawyers or press releases, directly. You mean like an interview? I mean like a video. Us. Explaining what happened, showing the evidence, making it impossible to ignore. Davidson's will sue. Let them. We're already being sued. What's one more? Ethan considered it. It was risky, but staying silent while Davidson's controlled the narrative was riskier. Okay, let's do it. They filmed it that night in Ethan's shop. No professional crew, just Mara's phone on a tripod. Ethan started, explaining how they'd met. Then Mara took over, walking through the fraud, showing the evidence, the photos, the invoices, the testimony from 14 people. This isn't about money, she said to the camera. It's about justice, about making sure people like Rick Davidson can't keep hurting people who can't fight back. And if that makes me a liar or Ethan a bully, so be it. We know the truth, and we're not backing down. They posted it to YouTube at midnight. By morning, it had 50,000 views. By afternoon, 200,000. The comments shifted. Holy shit, this is real. I took my car to Davidson's last year. Now I'm wondering if they screwed me too. That billionaire seems legit, like he actually cares. But not everyone was convinced. Some still saw Ethan as the villain. And then the threats started, emails telling him to back off, messages warning that accidents happen. One particular message stood out, sent from a burner account. "Your kid goes to Lakeside School, right? Cute uniform." Ethan's blood turned to ice. He forwarded it to the police immediately. They opened an investigation but said there wasn't much they could do without more concrete threats. "We'll increase patrols near the school," the officer said, "and I'd recommend private security for your daughter." That night, Ethan hired 2 bodyguards, one for Sophie at school, one for the penthouse. Mara found him sitting in the dark, staring at his phone. "What happened?" she asked. He showed her the message. Her face went pale. "They're threatening Sophie? They're threatening the idea of Sophie, trying to scare me. Is it working?" "Yeah." She sat beside him. "We can stop, right now, drop everything. I'll sign whatever release they want, pay whatever they're asking, just make this go away." "No." "Ethan, they're going after your daughter. They're bluffing. It's intimidation." "What if they're not? What if something happens to her because of this?" Then I'll never forgive myself. But I also won't let them win by threatening my kid. Because that sets a precedent that you can break the law, hurt people, and get away with it by scaring the good guys into silence. The good guys die in real life, Ethan. Sometimes, but not today. 2 days later, Mara's van, the one still sitting abandoned in Georgetown, was torched. The fire department called at 4 a.m. By the time Ethan and Mara arrived, it was a blackened shell. The fire investigator said it was arson. Accelerant poured through the interior, lit from the outside. "Any cameras?" Ethan asked. "We're checking, but this area is pretty isolated." Mara stood staring at the wreckage. Her last van, the final piece of her business. Gone. "I'm sorry," Ethan said. "Don't be. It was already dead." She turned to him. "But this proves we're right. They wouldn't be doing this if they weren't scared. Or they're doing it because they're dangerous. Same thing." The next morning, Rachel Kwan called. "We've made a decision," she said. "Based on the evidence and statements, we're filing formal charges against Davidson's Automotive and Richard Davidson personally, 15 counts of fraud, 3 counts of witness intimidation. This is happening." Ethan felt relief crash over him. "When?" "Arraignment is Monday. It'll be public. Media will be everywhere. Are you ready?" "We're ready." Monday came fast. The courthouse steps were packed. Reporters, cameras, people holding signs both supporting and condemning them. Ethan held Sophie's hand on one side. Mara stood on the other. Rick Davidson arrived with his lawyer, looking confident. He saw Ethan and smiled. Not friendly, predatory. Inside, the judge read the charges. Davidson pled not guilty. Bail was set at $50,000. He posted it immediately and walked out. On the courthouse steps, his lawyer gave a statement. "My client is innocent. These charges are politically motivated, driven by a billionaire with unlimited resources and a personal vendetta. We will fight this, and we will win." Then it was their turn. Rachel Kwan spoke first, outlining the evidence. Then she stepped aside and let Mara speak. "For 2 years I trusted Davidsons with my business," Mara said. Her voice was steady, clear. "I paid them thousands of dollars. And in return, they lied to me, cheated me, destroyed my livelihood. This isn't about revenge. It's about accountability. And I won't stop fighting until justice is served." The crowd erupted, some cheering, some booing. Cameras flashed. Questions were shouted. Ethan put his arm around Mara's shoulders and guided her through the chaos. Sophie clung to his other hand, wide-eyed. In the car, Mara let out a shaky breath. "That was terrifying. You were perfect. I felt like I was going to throw up." "You didn't. That's what matters." She looked at him. "What happens now?" "Now we wait. The trial could take months, maybe a year." "And in the meantime?" "In the meantime, we live. You find a new job. I spend time with Sophie. We figure out what normal looks like." "I don't think I remember normal." "Me neither. We'll figure it out together." That night, after Sophie was asleep, Ethan found Mara on the balcony. The city spread out below them, lights flickering in the darkness. "You should know something," she said without looking at him. "What?" "And I'm not staying after this is over. In the penthouse, I mean. I need to find my own place, stand on my own feet." "Okay." "Really? Just okay?" What did you want me to say? That I'd force you to stay? No, She paused. I thought you'd argue. Why would I argue? You're an adult. You get to make your own choices. Even if they're stupid? Especially then. She smiled despite herself. You're really something, you know that? I've been told. They stood in silence for a while. Then Mara spoke again. Whatever happens with the trial, I want you to know. You changed my life, for real. I was drowning, and you threw me a rope. You grabbed it, that's the hard part. Still, thank you. You're welcome. She turned to face him fully, and for a moment something passed between them. The kind of moment where everything could change with a single word or gesture. But neither of them moved, because some things were too fragile to rush, and some fights were worth taking slow. The trial started on a Tuesday morning in March, 6 months after Mara's van had first limped into Ethan's shop. The courtroom was packed, media in the back rows, the 14 complainants scattered throughout, and Rick Davidson sitting at the defense table looking like a man who'd never doubted he'd walk out free. Ethan sat behind the prosecution with Mara on one side and an empty seat on the other where Sophie's nanny would bring her during lunch recess. He'd promised his daughter she could see the courtroom, see what her dad had been fighting for all these months. Rachel Kwan stood to give her opening statement. She was calm, methodical, laying out the case like she was building a house. Foundation first, then walls, then roof. Each count of fraud, each victim, each piece of evidence that showed a pattern spanning 5 years. This isn't complicated, she told the jury. Mr. Davidson ran a business built on trust. People brought him their vehicles, their livelihoods, and trusted him to do the work he charged them for. He violated that trust, systematically, deliberately, for profit. The evidence will show 15 separate instances where Mr. Davidson billed customers for services he never performed, used substandard parts while charging premium prices, and trapped victims in contracts that made them dependent on his continued fraud. Davidson's lawyer stood next. Marcus Chen, mid-40s, expensive suit, the kind of confidence that came from winning cases that should have been lost. The prosecution wants you to believe my client is a criminal, Chen said. But what they're really showing you is a small business owner trying to survive in an impossible economy. Yes, mistakes were made. Parts sometimes fail. Work occasionally needs to be redone. That's not fraud. That's the reality of running an auto shop. And when one customer, Ms. Quinn, couldn't pay her bills, she found a billionaire willing to fund a vendetta. That's what this case is really about. Revenge dressed up as justice. Mara's jaw tightened beside Ethan. He put his hand over hers under the table. He's lying, she whispered. I know. The jury will too. The first witness was Jennifer Park, the woman who'd been charged $1,200 for brake work that was never done. She was nervous, hands shaking as she took the stand, but her story was clear. I brought my car in because the brakes were squeaking, she said. Mr. Davidson told me the pads were worn down to nothing, said it was dangerous to drive, quoted me $1,200 for parts and labor. And did you authorize that work? Kwan asked. Yes. I needed my car for work. I couldn't risk it. What happened next? I picked it up 3 days later, paid in full, drove it home. The brakes still squeaked. Did you bring it back? I called. Mr. Davidson said new brakes need time to break in, that the noise would stop after a few 100 miles. Did it? No, it got worse. So I took it to another shop. They looked at it and told me the brake pads weren't new. They were the original ones. Someone had just cleaned them and put everything back together. Chen cross-examined, trying to suggest she was mistaken, that maybe the second shop was lying to get her business, but Jennifer held firm. I know what I was told, she said, and I know what I paid for. Mr. Davidson lied to me. The testimony went on for 3 days, each victim telling the same story with different details. Carlos Martinez and his transmission. A couple named the Johnsons who'd lost $3,000 on engine work that was never completed. A delivery driver who'd had 2 vans destroyed by neglect disguised as maintenance. And then it was Mara's turn. She walked to the stand wearing clothes Ethan had bought her, not because she'd asked, but because she'd mentioned needing something appropriate for court, and he'd quietly had Diane handle it. A simple gray suit that made her look professional without trying too hard. Juan walked her through the timeline. how she'd bought 3 vans from Davidson, how he'd set up the exclusive maintenance contract, how over 2 years she'd paid nearly $7,000 for services that were either incomplete or never performed. "Did you trust Mr. Davidson?" Quan asked. "Yes, completely. He sold me the vans, set up financing, seemed like he wanted to help me succeed." "When did that change?" "When my vans started breaking down, one after another, and every time I brought them in, the problems got worse instead of better." "Did you question him?" "Of course, but he always had an explanation. The parts were worn out. I was driving too hard. I needed to upgrade to premium service, and I believed him because I didn't know any better." Chen's cross-examination was brutal. He questioned her financial history, her eviction notices, the fact that she'd been living in her van. "Isn't it true, Ms. Quinn, that you were desperate? That you needed money and saw an opportunity when Mr. Vale showed interest in your case?" "No." "No? You didn't need money." "I needed money. I still need money. But that's not why I'm here." "Then why are you here?" Mara looked directly at the jury. "Because what he did was wrong, and if I don't stand up and say something, he'll keep doing it to other people who can't fight back." "Very noble. But isn't it convenient that your nobility comes with a billionaire's legal team?" "Mr. Vale didn't buy my testimony. He believed me when no one else would. There's a difference." Chen tried to shake her for another 20 minutes, but couldn't. She was steady, honest about her mistakes, but clear about Davidson's fraud. When she stepped down, Ethan caught her eye. She looked exhausted, but relieved. The prosecution's case wrapped up on day 7. Quan presented the physical evidence: the oil filters with dates that didn't match invoices, the belts that were wrong sizes, the parts that had been marked and returned without installation. Expert witnesses testified about industry standards, what constituted proper maintenance, how the fraud had been structured to avoid detection. Then it was the defense's turn. Chen called character witnesses, customers who'd used Davidson's for years without problems, other shop owners who vouched for Rick's reputation. He brought in his own expert who argued that the evidence was circumstantial, that parts sometimes failed prematurely, that dates on filters could be manufacturing errors. And then he called Rick Davidson himself. Rick took the stand looking humble, almost hurt, like a man who couldn't understand why this was happening to him. "I've run that shop for 23 years, he said. "Took it over from my father. It's my life, my legacy. I've made mistakes, every business does, but I never intentionally defrauded anyone." "What about Ms. Quinn?" Chen asked. "Did you defraud her?" "No. I tried to help her. She was struggling financially. I cut her deals, let her pay late, even did some work at cost. And when she couldn't pay at all, she found Mr. Vale and suddenly I'm the villain. Do you feel you've been treated unfairly?" "I feel like I'm being destroyed by someone with unlimited resources who decided I made a good target." It was a performance, and it was effective. Ethan could see some jurors nodding slightly, but then Quan cross-examined. "Mr. Davidson, you testified that you never intentionally defrauded anyone. Is that correct?" "Yes." "Then how do you explain this?" She held up a photograph. "This is an oil filter from Ms. Quinn's van. It's dated January 2024. But your invoice shows you changed her oil in March 2025. How does that happen by accident?" "Filters get mislabeled. It happens." "Once? Sure. But we have documentation of this happening with 7 different customers. 7 times, filters that were supposedly new were actually months or years old. That's not mislabeling. That's a pattern." "I can't speak to every filter in my shop." "You can't? You're the owner. You sign off on the work. Are you saying you don't know what your technicians are doing?" "I'm saying mistakes happen. 7 times? To 7 different customers? All charged for new parts that were actually old?" Quan stepped closer. "Mr. Davidson, isn't the truth that you intentionally used old parts, billed customers for new ones, and pocketed the difference?" "No." "Then explain the pattern." "I can't, but that doesn't make it fraud." "Actually, that's exactly what makes it fraud," Chen objected. The judge sustained, but the damage was done. Closing arguments came 2 days later. Chen painted Davidson as a victim of circumstance, a small business owner caught in the crosshairs of a wealthy man's ego. Quan painted him as a predator who'd built his business on lies. The defense wants you to believe this is about mistakes, Quan said. But look at the evidence: 15 victims, $32,000 in fraudulent charges, a pattern that spans 5 years. That's not mistakes. That's a business model. And it ends today. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Ethan spent that time in a small conference room with Mara and the other complainants. They were quiet, each lost in their own thoughts about what a guilty verdict would mean, or what a not guilty verdict would cost. Sophie was there too, sitting in Ethan's lap, drawing pictures of the courthouse. She'd been remarkably patient through all of this, sensing somehow that it mattered. "Daddy, are you going to win?" she asked. "I don't know, Bug. But you're right. The bad man should lose. That's not always how it works." "Why not?" Ethan thought about how to explain that justice wasn't guaranteed, that being right didn't always mean winning, that the world was complicated and unfair. "Sometimes," he said carefully, "bad people are good at pretending to be good, and it takes a long time for everyone else to see the truth." "But you saw it." "Yeah, I did." "Then other people will too." He kissed the top of her head. "I hope so." At 4:47 p.m., the bailiff called them back. The jury had reached a verdict. The walk back to the courtroom felt like miles. Ethan held Mara's hand. Not romantic, just human. Two people who'd fought together waiting to see if it mattered. The jury foreman stood. In the case of the state of Washington versus Richard Davidson and Davidson's Automotive, on the count of fraud in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty. Mara's hand tightened in Ethan's. On the count of fraud in the second degree, we find the defendant guilty. It continued. 15 counts, 15 guilty verdicts. When it was done, Rick Davidson sat motionless at the defense table. His lawyer was already talking about appeals, but Rick wasn't listening. He was staring at the jury like he couldn't understand what had just happened. The judge set sentencing for 3 weeks out and dismissed court. Outside, the media swarmed. Rachel Kwan gave a brief statement, then stepped aside for Mara. She stood at the microphone, and for a moment she didn't speak. Just looked at the cameras, at the crowd, at the proof that speaking up had mattered. 2 years ago, she said finally, I was struggling to keep my business alive. I trusted someone who promised to help, and instead, he nearly destroyed me. Today, justice was served. Not because I had money or power or connections, but because the truth mattered more than his lies. And I want every person out there who's been cheated, who's been taken advantage of, who thinks they're too small to fight back. You're not. Your voice matters. Your story matters. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The crowd erupted in applause. Ethan stood back, watching her own this moment. She didn't need him here. Didn't need his money or his platform or his lawyers. She'd won because she'd refused to be silent. Sentencing came 3 weeks later. The judge gave Rick Davidson 4 years in prison and ordered him to pay full restitution, $32,000 split among the victims, plus fines and court costs. Davidson's Automotive was shut down permanently. The building sold to pay debts. It wasn't everything. 4 years wouldn't undo the damage. $32,000 wouldn't replace the businesses destroyed or the trust broken. But it was something. And sometimes something was enough. After the sentencing, Ethan took Mara and Sophie to lunch at a small diner in Fremont. Nothing fancy. Just burgers and fries and the kind of normalcy they'd been missing for months. So what now? Mara asked, stealing a fry from Sophie's plate. Now you rebuild, Ethan said. With what? My vans are gone. My business is dead. Then start a new one. On what capital? Ethan pulled an envelope from his jacket and slid it across the table. What's this? Mara asked. Open it. Inside was a check. Not to her, to a business account he'd set up. Quinn Logistics LLC, $50,000. Ethan, I can't. It's not a gift, it's an investment. I'm putting in 50 grand, you're putting in the work. We split profits 60-40. You get the 60 because you're doing the actual labor. You're serious. Completely. But there's a condition. Of course there is. You hire fair, pay fair, treat people the way you wanted to be treated. Build something that matters. Mara stared at the check. This is insane. Probably, but we're good at insane. We? Yeah, we. I'm not going anywhere. She looked up at him. Why? The case is over. You won. You can go back to your life. This is my life now, fighting for people who need it, building things that matter. And I can't think of a better partner than someone who knows what it's like to lose everything and still get back up. Sophie raised her hand. Can I be a partner too? Absolutely, Mara said. You're in charge of morale. What's morale? Keeping everyone happy. I can do that. I'm very happy. She demonstrated by grinning with ketchup on her face. They laughed. The three of them, in a diner booth, planning a future that made no sense on paper but felt right in every way that mattered. Over the next 6 months, Quinn Logistics grew. Mara bought 2 used vans, inspected thoroughly by Ethan himself, hired a driver, then another, built a reputation for reliability and honesty that spread through Seattle's delivery community. Ethan split his time between the shop and Vail Industries, finally finding a balance that didn't make him feel like he was failing at both. He made it to Sophie's recitals, her soccer games, her bedtime stories, and Mara moved into her own apartment, small, affordable. Hers. She'd tried to pay Ethan back for the months in his guest room, but he'd refused. You watched Sophie when I couldn't, made pancakes, reminded me what normal feels like. That's worth more than rent. They stayed close, not romantic, though there were moments when it could have been. But they'd both learned that some relationships mattered more than labels. What they had was partnership, trust, the knowledge that they'd fought together and won. One Saturday morning, a year after the verdict, Ethan was in his shop when someone knocked on the door. He looked up to find an older woman standing there, nervous. Are you Ethan Vail? She asked. Yeah, can I help you? I saw the news about what you did with Davidson's. She twisted her hands. I think someone's doing the same thing to me. A shop in Kent. They've charged me $4,000 over 6 months, and my car still doesn't run right. I don't know what to do. Ethan set down his wrench. Come in. Tell me everything. She did. He documented it, called Mara. We've got another one, he said when she answered. Another fraud case? Yeah, different shop, same pattern. There was a pause, then Mara laughed. So we're doing this now? Chasing fraud cases? Looks like it. You in? Always. Let me make some calls. See if there are others. They found 7 more victims, built another case, filed another complaint. The shop owner settled within 2 months, refunded every dollar, closed quietly to avoid prosecution. Word spread. People started reaching out, mechanics, customers, anyone who'd been cheated and didn't know how to fight back. Ethan and Mara took the cases that mattered, the ones where victims couldn't afford lawyers but deserved justice anyway. They won some, lost others. But every fight mattered, because here's what Ethan had learned. Money didn't make you useful. Power didn't make you good. What mattered was showing up, fighting for people who couldn't fight for themselves, using whatever advantages you had, wealth, knowledge, stubbornness, to level a playing field that was never level to begin with. And Mara had learned something too, that asking for help wasn't weakness, that you could lose everything and still rebuild. That the people worth trusting were the ones who showed up at 3 a.m. and never asked what they'd get in return. On a clear winter morning 2 years after they'd met, Mara's fleet, now 6 vans, all running clean, rolled out for the day's deliveries. She stood in the parking lot of her warehouse space, watching them go, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Pride. Real, earned pride. Ethan pulled up in his truck with Sophie in the passenger seat. Morning, he called. Morning. What are you two doing here? Sophie wanted to see the vans. She's been talking about them all week. Sophie climbed out, ran over. Mara, did you see? All the vans match now. I did. Pretty cool, right? Can I drive one when I'm older? Absolutely. You've got a job here anytime you want it. Ethan walked over, hands in his pockets. How's it feel? Surreal. 2 years ago, I was sleeping in a parking lot. Now I've got a warehouse, 6 vans, 4 employees. It doesn't seem real. It's real. You built it. We built it. No, I wrote a check. You did everything else. Mara smiled. You're selling yourself short. Again. It's a habit. They stood watching the vans disappear into Seattle traffic. Sophie ran around the parking lot making engine noises. "I've been thinking," Mara said. About? About expanding. There's demand for what we do, honest logistics, fair prices, treating drivers like humans. Sounds good. What do you need? More capital, maybe another 50 grand to buy 2 more vans, hire another driver. Done. Just like that? Just like that, but same deal. Investment, not charity. 60-40 split. You know, at this rate, you're going to end up owning a logistics company. Good. I always wanted to be a delivery driver. She laughed. You're ridiculous. I've been told. Sophie ran back over. Daddy, can we get lunch? I'm hungry. Already? We just had breakfast. I'm a growing kid. Growing kids need food. Mara knelt down. You know what? I'm hungry too. Want to get pizza? Yes, can we, Daddy? Ethan looked at the two of them, his daughter and the woman who'd changed everything, and felt something settle in his chest. Contentment, maybe, or purpose, or just the knowledge that he was exactly where he needed to be. Yeah, he said. Let's get pizza. They piled into his truck, Sophie in the middle, Mara by the window, and drove through Seattle toward a pizza place that Sophie swore made the best pepperoni in the entire world. And Ethan thought about how a year ago he'd been alone in a shop at 3 a.m., fixing a transmission for a stranger because he didn't know what else to do with his life. Now he had a daughter who laughed more, a business partner who challenged him, a purpose that went beyond profit margins and stock prices. He hadn't saved Mara. If anything, she'd saved him, reminded him that money was just a tool, that power meant nothing without purpose, that the only wealth that mattered was the kind you built with your hands and gave away freely. At the pizza place, they squeezed into a booth. Sophie ordered pepperoni. Mara got vegetarian. Ethan went with whatever special was on the board. To new beginnings, Mara said, raising her water glass. To second chances, Ethan added. To pizza. Sophie contributed. They clinked glasses. And in that moment, surrounded by the noise of a crowded restaurant and the warmth of people who mattered, Ethan understood something fundamental. Success wasn't measured in billions or buildings or how many people knew your name. It was measured in moments like this. Pizza with people you loved, problems you could solve. The knowledge that tomorrow you'd wake up and fight for someone who needed it. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Because in the end, the richest people weren't the ones with the most money. They were the ones who knew what to do with it, who used their advantages to lift others instead of building walls, who understood that true power came from showing up when someone needed help and never asking what you'd get in return. Ethan had spent years building an empire, but it took a woman with a broken van and more courage than capital to teach him what empires were for. Not isolation, connection, not accumulation, distribution, not power over people, power used for people. The pizza arrived. Sophie dove in immediately, getting sauce everywhere. Mara helped her wipe her face while simultaneously stealing a slice, and Ethan sat back, watching them, thinking about the road ahead. More cases to fight, more people to help, more late nights and early mornings and battles that wouldn't always end in victory. But he wouldn't be alone. He had Sophie. He had Mara. He had a purpose that made getting out of bed feel less like obligation and more like opportunity. That was worth more than any amount of money. That was the kind of wealth you couldn't buy. You could only build it. One connection at a time, one fight at a time, one moment of showing up when it would have been easier to walk away. 6 months later, on a rainy Seattle morning that reminded Ethan of the night they'd met, Mara called him. You need to come to the warehouse, she said. What's wrong? Nothing. Just come. When he arrived, all 6 vans were parked in a line, and standing in front of them was Mara, holding a clipboard and wearing a smile he'd never seen before. What's this? He asked. This is me officially making you a partner, equal shares, 50-50. You've earned it. Mara, we had a deal. And now we have a new deal. You don't get to hide behind your money anymore. You're in this, really in this. So it's 50-50 or I'm shutting down and starting over without you. Ethan looked at the vans, at the warehouse, at the business they'd built from nothing. "That's extortion," he said. "Yeah, is it working?" He laughed. "Yeah, it's working." She handed him the clipboard. Partnership agreement, already signed by her, waiting for his signature. He signed it without reading the details. Because some things didn't need fine print. Some things were built on trust. And trust, he'd learned, was the only currency that really mattered. They shook hands. Partners. Equals. Two people who'd started in the wreckage and built something that mattered. "So what now?" Ethan asked. "Now we work. We grow. We help people. Same as always." "Sounds good to me." They stood in the rain watching water beat on the vans, and Ethan thought about the journey that had led here. A broken van on a stormy night. A woman who refused to quit. A fight for justice that became something bigger than either of them expected. He'd entered this trying to save someone. Trying to feel useful. Trying to prove that money could buy meaning. He'd been wrong about all of it. You couldn't save people. You could only stand beside them while they saved themselves. You couldn't buy meaning. You had to build it through choices and actions and showing up when it mattered. And money? Money was just a tool. Powerful, yes, but meaningless without the courage to use it for something beyond yourself. That's what Mara had taught him. And in teaching him, she'd changed everything, not just his life, but the way he saw the world, the way he moved through it, the way he measured what mattered. Success wasn't a number in a bank account. It was a 5-year-old laughing at breakfast. A partner who challenged you to be better. A business built on honesty in an industry that rewarded lies. It was choosing to fight when walking away would have been easier. It was showing up at 3 a.m. for a stranger and discovering they weren't a stranger at all. They were the person who'd been waiting to remind you what it meant to be human, to be useful, to be enough. And together, one broken van at a time, they were rebuilding more than businesses. They were rebuilding belief in a world where good people could still win, where justice was possible, where showing up mattered. That was their legacy. Not money, not power, just the simple revolutionary act of caring when no one expected you to. And in a world that had forgotten what that looked like, it changed everything.